Not in the fantasy football season. Here's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking this week. All of a sudden, this tight end position is getting better over the last few weeks. Where in the beginning of the year, a lot of players struggled and they didn't really put up numbers. First tight end, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now the number one option in the passing game is Travis Kelce. And now with DeAndre Hopkins added in a trade last week, it opens up the offense even more, I believe, for Kelce. So this week, a great matchup versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their defense can't stop anyone, and we saw Kelce last week go for 10 catches, 90 yards in that one at the Vegas Raiders. So this week, what a great matchup and becoming the number one target and things opening up a little bit for him once again. I think he goes out there and has a great game. Number 2, Brock Bowers of the Las Vegas Raiders. Bowers the number one target in the passing game for Vegas after Adams got traded a few weeks ago to the New York Jets. And obviously, this is a beatable matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals where their defense hasn't stopped many people all season long. So Brock Bowers, he's a matchup problem. Best tight end to come out, in my opinion, in the last decade. These linebackers, it doesn't matter who you put on Brock Bowers. He's going to go out there and perform. And imagine he had a better quarterback than a Gardner Minshew. He really will put up elite numbers. So right now, even with quarterback play all season long, Bowers is going out there. The league leaders in most stats at the tight end position. Number 3, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. So the last 2 out of 3 weeks, he's starting to kick it into gear, Trey McBride. And he was the number 3, 4 tight end off the board for a reason coming into the year. So this week, a matchup versus a good defense in the Chicago Bears coming to town. But Trey McBride last week over 100 yards. And he's really putting up points. So after that concussion now, he's got back to form where he was last season. And Kyler Murray's definitely looked better the last 2 weeks as well. So this offense is starting to click. Trey McBride's starting to put up those elite numbers like he did last season. And this week, in a home game versus Chicago, I think once again he has a good ball game. Number 4, Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons, off to a slow start. It was Pitts in this offense in Atlanta, but now Kirk Cousins, the rapport is down. What a Drake London, what a Kyle Pitts, a Darnell Mooney, and they're putting up points. And last week, Kyle Pitts went out there, had a monster performance, finding the end zone twice. So 4 games in a row, double-digit fantasy points. This week, a great matchup versus a bad Dallas Cowboy defense, where last week we saw George Kittle roll for over 120 yards in that ball game. And I think Pitts once again goes out there and has a double-digit fantasy game. Number 5, Cade Otton of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So arguably he could be the number 1 option in the passing game now for this Buck team, with Mike Evans out the next few weeks, Chris Godwin out for the season, and Otton went out there last week, another monster game, 9 catches, 81 yards, and found the end zone twice versus the Atlanta Falcons. So I know that Falcon defense is nowhere near this Kansas City Chiefs defense, but someone's going to have to catch the ball, and we could see a lot of garbage time in this ball game where Cade Otton could get a lot of points in a hurry because he could run that seam. He's a pretty good yard after catch tight end, and he's been a matchup problem at 6'6", 6'7", where he's towering over defenders, and a big red zone option as well. Number 6, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. So all of a sudden, Mark Andrews, he looked like he was washed. In the last 3-4 weeks, he's putting up fantasy points and finding the end zone with 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. I know this week a tougher matchup versus the Denver Broncos, but Mark Andrews now, he looks healthy, and he's back into the playbook with this Baltimore Raven team and playing his normal amount of snaps. So Andrews, he's a big target. We know they traded for Deontay Johnson, which could even open up things a little bit more in the middle of the field, I believe, for Mark Andrews. But we'll see if Johnson plays in this game. But like I said, Andrews, the last 3-4 weeks, the numbers have been up there with the top tight ends, and he's definitely back where he was a few seasons ago. Number 7, Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions. So Sam Laporta, it was good to see him find the end zone last week, and he should have had 2 touchdowns, but just stopped at the 1-yard line, and it would have been a 2-touchdown performance. So with Jameson Williams out last week, we saw the targets go up for Sam Laporta. He looked a little bit healthier in that ball game, and this week I know it's a tougher matchup at the Green Bay Packers, but like I said, with Jameson Williams out, those targets going to be going back to Sam Laporta. Detroit last week didn't throw the football much, and he still had a nice ball game. And this week, potential shootout could be written all over this one with 2 division rivals in the NFC North. Number 8, Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Evan Ingram right now stepping into a bigger role, I believe, in this offense. Christian Kirk out for the season, broken collarbone. Brian Thomas banged up. We don't know if he's going to play with the rib injury. And also as well, Gabe Davis banged up, even though he's expected to play. So this week in the matchup at Philadelphia, well, I believe Philly's going to get off to an early start, and this Jacksonville Jaguar team is going to be one-dimensional and have to throw the football a whole lot. But Evan Ingram, ever since he returned a few weeks ago, he's putting up elite numbers at the tight end position. And once again this week at Philadelphia, I think he goes out there and has another good game. Number 9, David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. So this Cleveland Brown offense has definitely improved over the last game and a half with Jameis Winston coming in quarterback, and he gets that football down the field. He's got a big arm. Yes, he's going to throw interceptions, but that doesn't matter in terms of guys like David Njoku, Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore putting up fantasy points because Winston could get that ball on the numbers, and he's just going to keep throwing and putting that football down the field. So this week, a tougher matchup versus the Chargers that are a solid unit, no doubt about it. But like I said, David Njoku, the last 2 weeks where he was non-existent, the first almost 2 months of the season, he's starting to put up numbers with Jameis Winston in there quarterback. And this week, once again, I think he's a solid option. Number 10, Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. Kincaid found the end zone last week, and he's a pretty solid tight end, Dalton Kincaid, where his floor is still 7 or 8 fantasy points for the most part in PPR leagues. So this offense has opened up more with Amari Cooper in it. And I know Cooper didn't do much last week, but just his presence on the field and having number 1 corners follow him around opens up the playbook for guys like Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, like I mentioned. And once again, this week in a good matchup versus Miami, where their defense can't stop anyone and just gave up 100 yards to Trey McBride. I think, once again, he has a good ball game this week, Kincaid. Number 11, Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. Number 2 option in the passing game for Dallas. This has a potential shootout written all over it at the Atlanta Falcons. Indoor game, always a fast track. Offenses, I believe, in indoor games have an advantage over the defenses. So Ferguson, I know the numbers have dropped off a little bit this season where they were last, but this Cowboy offense as a whole dropped off this season from last. So Jake Ferguson still a solid option. I still believe he could go out there, get 5 catches, 50-yard range in this one. Number 12, Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers. Tucker Kraft, he had a big ball game last week, including over a 65-yard reception, and he found the end zone later in that ball game. So Kraft and Love have a great rapport. We'll see if Jordan Love plays in this game, but I think he will. It's a big division matchup, and he scathed. The big injury was Jordan Love, only with a strained groin day-to-day. So we'll see Tucker Kraft if he could go out there once again, have a nice game. But the only thing with the Green Bay Packer team, every week it's someone different besides Jaden Reed being the more consistent option out of all those players between Dobbs, Christian Watson, Wicks, and Kraft. But Tucker Kraft weekly is a top 12 option. 13, Zach Ertz of the Washington Commanders. Is Zach Ertz. He's gone out there and he's putting up nice numbers this season as the number 2 option in the passing game behind Terry McLaurin. I know he's up there in age now, is Zach Ertz, but he's still finding ways to get open. He's always had a high IQ, and he knows how to position himself to make some plays and get that leverage on defenders. So this week, a good matchup at the New York Giants, where their defense can't really stop anyone. And Zach Ertz, I believe, goes out there once again and is a solid option. 14, Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. So this week, a good matchup at Arizona. And Cole Kmet, we've seen him have good games on the road this season, more than he's had at home in Soldier Field. So Arizona last week, their defense didn't do much in that ball game, but it did enough to win that one at the Miami Dolphins. And I think Cole Kmet, him and Caleb Williams got to get on the same page once again, where Caleb's been one good game, one bad game for the most part, and you're going to get the growing pains with a rookie quarterback. But Cole Kmet, he's a matchup problem for safeties and linebackers at the tight end position, and he's got good yard after catch ability as well. So this week at Arizona, I believe he bounces back in the 15th and final tight end. I'm ranking Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles, so we'll see if he plays in this game as Dallas Goedert. And we saw some big games from him early in the season. I know A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith were out in some of those ball games, but this is a great matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Dallas Goedert, we know he's a big-time red zone threat, and we know a good yard after catch tight end as well, who's a smooth route runner. So if he's back in this ball game versus Jacksonville, I still believe he has good value this week. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking for Week 9 of the fantasy football season.